The bard, loyal to his friends and pollywogs. Here's a look at the Bandai Stranger Things Target exclusive, Dustin. Dustin is approximately 4 inches in height and features a button on the back of his backpack that, when pressed, opens his mouth and lifts his hat to reveal a hidden dart inside. Figure comes with retro packaging and includes a Demogorgon build-a-figure piece. Going to be doing the review of Dustin here in a second. First, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at Bandai that provided the samples not only of Dustin, but the previously looked at 11, which are both Target exclusives, by the way, which is a bit of a bummer. Again, a reminder that here in Canada, our Target stores came and went, and we haven't had one since. Let's go ahead and grab the ruler and put it right to the very top of Dustin's hat. The figure factoring in the hat is about 4.5 inches in height, or just about 11.5 centimeters tall. Comparing the sizes, though, of these figures, we can slide over Dustin just to free up a little bit of space next to him and bring in the previously looked at 11. 11 is a little bit smaller, as you can certainly see, but I thought another fun comparison to be making, as I did mention earlier, that these sort of reminded me of the Fright feature Ghostbusters. While I don't, unfortunately, have Fright feature Ghostbusters, I certainly do have the reissue Kenner figures. I'm going to bring in Peter Venkman, and why not, we'll bring in Egon Spangler as well. The Fright feature Ghostbusters, yes, admittingly would have been a more fun comparison to make, but yeah, you can kind of see how they fit in roughly with the same toy line. If you did have those other Fright feature Ghostbusters, the ones that were released, granted, yes, in the 80s, I think both the Fright feature, even though they're not called this, versions of 11 here and Dustin would fit in rather nicely with that toy line. Like 11, Dustin comes included with the arm for the Demogorgon. I really hope I grabbed the right one. I had taken it out of the packaging and I put it down alongside 11. And in the process, I may have mixed around the arms, but just to kind of show you, this is the arm that came included with 11, or it could have been vice versa. The whole point, though, is between 11 and Dustin, we're sort of carrying off and covering the territory for at least the top limbs. The lower limbs, torso and head, are then going to be attached to Mike, Lucas, and Will. 3 of the other 5 figures that are, again, Target exclusives, which I don't have yet. I'm hoping to track those down at some point. So as it stands right now, I mean, it's basically just the arm of the Demogorgon. It's nicely painted. It has no articulation to speak of, and I really think the Demogorgon is going to be quite relegated to very limited articulation. But for me, at least, this line, unlike the Demogorgon and the Demodog that we looked at earlier, those larger scale ones, remember the ones that had the limited articulation, I can actually get more behind these ones, just because they're attached to what I feel to be more fun toy line. Like 11, Dustin also comes included with a, I'm going to put it in quotations because it's not really something that's advertised on the packaging, but we're going to call it that, Fright feature. Dustin comes included with a Fright feature, and unlike 11, this one actually does benefit from additional articulation. Because 11's arm automatically was part of the gimmick, this would raise and lower on 11, and you'd have to squeeze the legs together. It really then meant that the figure only had articulation just in the arm. In fact, we can bring in the 11. All this talk about her, I might as well just actually bring her in, because I'm sure her ears are burning. This was the 11 that we got before. I mean, again, we've already had a look at that in her own standalone review, but she only had just the articulation here in the arm. This arm, as well as the legs, were all attached to the gimmick. And just, again, a fresher course, a reminder of what she did. Squeeze the legs together. You can see it opens the mouth, raises the arm, and has a little trickling of blood coming down below. Again, if you want to see the full review, feel free to check that out. Dustin's, though, because his gimmick is attached to his backpack, spinning it around, you can see right there the button that has to be pressed in. Yeah, he still has full articulation in the arms, both the arms, full articulation in the legs. So you can actually have this guy sitting down if you'd like. Head sculpt wise, you know, again, it's more of a simplified looking Dustin here, but, you know, I got to say, it's still fun, the fact that we are getting sort of these simple characters that have the incorporated Fright gimmick. He is wearing his trademark hat, and underneath this hat, you may not see anything of what's going on, but there's a little surprise underneath that. We're going to look at that in a second. Has himself his little gray t-shirt with a little balloon underneath there, and then, of course, he has his jacket. The jacket is all molded, of course. You're not really going to be getting some really heavily sculpted bodies. They're pretty simple in design. Simple jeans, you know, simple, again, articulation for both of these figures. And again, he has the whiter shoes. No pegs or anything on the undersides of his feet, but it does have Netflix along with China. So there you go. Talking less now about the figure, and let's actually talk more about the gimmick. The gimmick, again, is activated by the button pressed on the back of his backpack or knapsack, something that we also say here in Canada. Pressing the button does a couple of things. It's going to open his mouth. It's going to lift up his hat. And then underneath his hat, you'll see what he's hiding inside. I'm going to go ahead and press the button on the back here. It does open his mouth. It doesn't give us so much of a tongue as it does just sort of give us the inner workings of his mouth. It does certainly hark back to the Fright feature. I'm trying to think whether it was Peter Venkman. I think Peter Venkman was sort of the one that had the mouth opening like this and the raised head. Correct me if I'm certainly wrong. But it does have the hat that lifts up, and as you're seeing, as it lifts up, hidden inside is little tiny Dart. Dustin was trying to raise, of course. Dart, as small and cute as he is, it's nice to see that he actually is hidden inside the hat. Sort of plays a bit of an Easter egg then when you're pressing the button. You can press the button up and down. Now, you can also press it so where just the hat alone is pressing or lifting up by itself. This only involves me just slightly pressing the button. So really, it does serve as two gimmicks. Gimmick with just the hat lifting by itself, and then pressing it in all the way lifts the hat as well as the rest of his mouth. So you actually get the benefit of sort of two gimmicks in one. It looks more like he's surprised than anything else. Yes, we're going to have to fix the ventilation system. I think that was a joke from The Simpsons. A simple enough figure, but certainly effective with what it needs to do. If you're certainly looking for realism, let's go ahead and bring 11 back in here. If you're certainly looking for realism, you're not going to get it with this particular lineup of Stranger Things figures from Bandai. If you wanted the more articulated figures, Bandai has covered you there. If you want slightly more larger Demogorgon and Demodog, Bandai has also done that. But I think of all of the things that we've looked at so far here in this channel that Bandai's doing for Stranger Things, the ones that I'm most interested in, as I've already stated, I'm sure quite not hard to hide in the other review of 11. The ones I'm the most interested in are these ones, because they look like old vintage 80s toys. Not necessarily connected to the Ghostbusters, not necessarily connected to what Kenner was doing back in the day, but sort of along those same lines that if you still had those old Ghostbuster toys from the 80s, both 11, Dustin, Mike, Lucas, and Will, which I have not yet picked up, I think would fit in extremely well with that old Ghostbusters line. And even just on their own, displaying them on the shelf. Anybody that would be going down and seeing your collection, I'm sure would be looking at figures like this, immediately thinking that these were toys from your childhood. And that's not the case at all. Really, really fun stuff from Bandai. I certainly hope they continue to make more of these figures. Maybe not as much the stuff as what we've been seeing so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bandai has done a pretty good job so far with the Stranger Things license, but it does seem like the way that they're handling the license is really split and directed towards different types of collectors. So, of course, you've got those larger scale, more detailed figures that have the additional articulation, like the Hopper and the 11. Those are geared towards collectors that want their Stranger Things figures to have more articulation. Then you've got the likes of the Demogorgon and Demodog, more basic class figures that you would imagine Bandai sort of directing more towards kids collecting. Then you have this line, which of the three that we've covered so far territory-wise is my favorite. The Target stuff clearly is geared towards the fans of the retro toy line, especially ones that love the gimmicks that were incorporated into toys. Back in the early 80s and 90s even, toys back then were more relegated to 5 points of articulation. That's about all you would really get for those toys. Head swivels, arms, and legs. That's it. If you were lucky, though, you would get the occasional gem toy line out there that would also incorporate a gimmick. I keep going back to the idea of the real Ghostbusters because they had the Fright features on their Ghostbusters and the Ghosts, and it was one of my favorite lines of the Kenner Ghostbusters. They have sort of done the same thing here when it comes to their Stranger Things, making simplified, more harder to read expressions. It doesn't look as much, admittingly, like Dustin, nor did really 11 look like 11, but they're sort of more stylized looking characters. But what the appeal of this line is not the limited articulation nor the sculpting on the faces, it's the gimmick that's incorporated into them. Now, Dustin's, because his gimmick is incorporated to his backpack, he does benefit from having some additional articulation that 11 unfortunately couldn't have. You had to squeeze her legs together and one arm moved up. So right off the bat, you removed 3 points of articulation. It really only had just she only had articulation in the shoulder. Dustin at least gets it in the arms and in the legs. His gimmick, of course, allows then his head to lift up, or his hat to lift up. And as you can see advertised on the front of the packaging with some incredible looking artwork, hidden underneath his hat is little tiny darts. Not a good idea to raise a baby Demogorgon. The artwork on the packaging alone would be something that if walking through the aisle and I didn't even know this line existed, and I saw this right away, I probably would have my hat lifting off my hat like that, or my head like that. Probably not going to have a little baby Demogorgon underneath. At least I wouldn't hope that that would be the case. But this would be a line instantly. If I saw it in a toy store, I would pick it up right away. Now, unfortunately, I can't do that. I can't go through a toy aisle of a Target because unfortunately our Targets left Canada several years ago that unfortunately I can't do that now. So my option of picking up the additional figures that make up this wave, the other 3 figures to, of course, complete the Demogorgon, I'd probably have to go online. I don't think I can actually order directly from Target. I think if anything, they probably ship only to the US. I'm going to have to check that. If not, and I can't get it directly from Target, I'm probably going to have to go onto eBay, because now that I've had a look at both 11 and Dustin, again, thanks to the folks over at Bandai, I am wanting to complete the set solely, well, 2 reasons. One of which to, of course, complete the Demogorgon, because I want to get a Demogorgon displayed with the rest of these guys. But the fact that these have these gimmick features incorporated into this toy line that look like the vintage toy lines of stuff I would have grown up with in the 80s, all the more reason why I want to get more behind this particular line, maybe above the other ones that we've looked at from Bandai that they've done for the Stranger Things stuff. Let me know down below in the comments section, first of all, if you guys have been seeing these figures on the toy shelves in Target. And second of all, what you guys think of this line. Is this something that you guys would like to get more of? I mean, they've only covered 5 figures so far. If, for example, Bandai has said to themselves, okay, well, we're not going to cover all the stuff that we've done so far, more articulation on the figures, the more basic class figures, and the gimmick figures. If we want to just follow the one and continue to produce figures for just that one line, I hope they decide to rally behind this line, because this is, I think, where the success of Stranger Things is going to be. You're playing into the idea that it's a vintage toy line, like the vintage series, of course, basing around the 80s. And I think it's something that retro collectors like myself are going to get more behind than maybe some of the other figures stuff that they've done so far. What do you guys think of it? Let me know down below in the comments section. Is this a line that you would like to certainly get into? Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Bandai that did provide the samples of 11, did provide the samples of Dustin, and now have given me a quest ahead of me now to track down the other 3 figures so I can complete the Demogorgon. I really hope I can actually get the other 3 figures. If you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn on the bell notification, and please make sure you're coming back to this channel while we have wrapped up things, at least for right now, on Stranger Things. There's definitely going to be a lot more videos coming your way, so make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.